This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming at you. What day of the week is it? Is it Monday? No, it's Sunday night. I wrote down Friday night.
What a perfect start. I have no idea.
Oh, it's May 24th. Sunday.
No, it's May 20. It's May 26th. Tomorrow's Memorial Day.
Okay,
Keep all that in there. But
right.
this is this is the I think 14th pod you and I are doing in the month of May. Just the two of us. So let's dive into it.
Yeah, obviously the Wolves lose game 3, and it's another game that Kyrie and Luka go off. Kyle, they've scored 50 plus points in each of the 3 games. They had 66 tonight, 63 in game 1, 52 in game 2, 66 tonight. And it was another game that Cat and Ant were not able to really produce. They have not scored more than 40 in any game this series. Obviously, that is not the whole story of the series. There's layers beneath all of that, but it kind of, to me, highlights that there's things going wrong here from a Wolves perspective on both sides of the ball. So which side do you want to start with? Where do you want to start?
I think you start with the offense, but just off the rip, like that was a therapeutic loss for me in a way. I said that, I mean, a week ago remember now it's a Sunday, just for you again, record keeping wise. A week ago,
because I actually had my notes up from game 2 podcast that was on Friday.
A week ago was the happiest sports moment of my life, and I think people saw that raw emotion. Like it was just awesome. They went in and they did something that no one really thought they could do, and they did it against the champs, and it was a moment. It was a real moment that should be honored and celebrated or whatever. And you fast forward a week now, and it's like that game 2 was the lowest point of my sports fandom, and then you start to think like, man, you lose those first 2 games by 4 total points. You know, you're kind of pissing away a really golden opportunity to do something even more special. And I might be in the minority here, Dane, but watching tonight, there's things we're going to talk about offensively and defensively that they could have cleaned up stuff. But it reminded me of, like, I like to run a lot, and I do 10Ks and half marathons and stuff. It just reminded me of that the last mile or the last lap of a race. And you're trying to give it your all and just empty the tank, and you just look next to you and someone is just gaining strides, and they're just pulling away from you, and you're like, dude, I'm going 100% speed. I've trained for this. I'm trying to go at this top speed, and the person next to me is just getting further and further away from me. And that's what Kyrie and Luka have done in this series. They have spots. They have the experience. Kyrie has done this. You know, one of the coolest moments I've ever seen, Dane, was the block by LeBron, but that overshadowed one of the greatest shots I've ever seen by Kyrie against the Warriors. Luka's done this his whole life. They were showing tonight on the broadcast at 14 when he was the youngest player ever to be playing professionally in Europe or whatever. They just have another gear that this Timberwolves team, Ant, Carl, Rudy, anyone, does not have yet. And some of those guys might develop it this summer, and some of those guys might never develop it, but I don't know how you watch these first 3 games and be really frustrated, but I don't know how you watch them and say that Minnesota's a better team, because that's not what I saw. And every game now it's tight with 5 minutes left, and then the Mavericks just find ways to execute on both ends, but offensively especially, man. They just shot after shot, make the right play or make a big shot, and that's been the difference.
Yeah, I think in the vein of the marathon analogy or something to learn, I think about Ant. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And in this series, he has looked just kind of like a step behind Kyrie. Yep. Or he did in games 1 and 2. That was a big change in this game right away. They put Mike Conley on Kyrie and kind of took Ant off of the Luka or Kyrie matchups, put him on one of the non-scoring as much weapons there. And that was the idea, to be able to go faster, right, at the end of the race or throughout the race. And Ant would just kind of be able to propel himself a little bit more. I think maybe we saw that a little bit with the spark and the third quarter and the dunk and some of those things. But I kind of go more to the him having something to learn, because a huge theme of the series is he's been a liability defensively. Mm-hmm. He has not been able to guard Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving, or to the extent that, Jaden McDaniels or Kyle Anderson have, where you feel good about it, you want to leave him there. But it's gotten worse than that. It's no shame to not be able to slow down or guard Kyrie or Luka, but then you need to be able to do something else defensively. And what we talked about a bunch, after game 2, was kind of that pick and roll that they were running, and how it's on the low man, right? The guy guarding the corner to come over and try and take away that Gafford or Lively lob. Well, that was Ant's job here in this game, because he's not guarding Kyrie or Luka, and he wasn't able to do that either. He's consistently getting lost. He doesn't seem to have just the defensive precision to understand what he needs to do defensively in this series. And there's a lot of excuses reasonable on the offensive side of the floor, but that's what's kind of, I think, been most costly in this series, is he hasn't been able to help. Again, he hasn't been able to help defensively against the Kyrie or Luka matchup. Tried that for 2 games, took him off of that, and still is kind of hurting the team defensively there. So obviously a ton on his shoulders doesn't mean he's trash or anything like that. It means he's 22 years old and needs to learn how to pace himself better to be fast at the end of the marathon. And he has to do a lot of learning to be able to, so the next time he's in this position in the playoffs, Western Conference Finals, whatever it might be, to not be the guy that they're picking on. I mean, in many ways, he's the guy. It looks to me like Luka is looking for him to lose focus defensively and then throw that zip pass to PJ Washington, like the clip that you sent me after the game. And that's just kind of been a consistent thing throughout this series, is Ant not being able to, kind of hold his weight defensively.
3:50 mark of the fourth quarter. It's tied at 104, and Luka comes down, and that's like kind of a play that, I sent to you that just highlighted it to me, right? The kid is 22, and he gets asked to do the world for this team, and for the most part, even with that dunk, right? He finds ways to elevate and lift up his whole team, but I think it's fair and it's okay to find ways to criticize his game, because you now know that he can do it. Like, that he can continue to level up. I mean, I don't know if we would have these nitpicks of him when he came out of the draft in 2020, because you're like, I don't even know what he is. He's just a ball of clay. But you now know he is one of the best players in the league. But then you see a moment like that where they're kind of switching matchups and stuff, and Ant just falls asleep, and he leaves PJ Washington in the corner wide open, as Mike's telling him, like, I'll take Kyrie, you go stand in the corner. And PJ Washington has no one within 15 feet of him, hits the 3, 107, 104, and the Wolves, I think, went on to score 3 points after that the rest of the way. And it's just those little moments, and it sucks, right? It sucks to be like, hey, I know he's 22, and I know he's elevated this franchise, but I'm going to find this little grain of sand to nitpick. But that goes back to my marathon analogy or the Rubik's Cube that we've been talking about. Kyrie and Luka have not really found, there's no grain of sand for them that you can pick. Like, they just, every little detail. I mean, that shot Kyrie hit in the corner in front of the bench when he was doubled by Carl and Ant. I mean, the Wolves, they don't even really have anyone on the team that can get that shot outside of Ant, let alone make it. But just those little details, man, are what are separating this series, a 3-game series now that's been decided by a total of 13 total points. But it could be decided by 3 total points in 3 games. And I would still say the Mavs have just done more, especially in those final 5 minutes, winning time, clutch time, that they deserve to be up 3-0.
Yeah, there's just like a level of consistency to what they're trying to get to offensively and what they're doing defensively. It seems like the Wolves, and I guess if we stay on Ant, like Ant in particular, is looking for those ways in which, I guess if we flip to the offensive side of the floor, to be able to, get to something consistently. They have not been able to, like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're going to offensively in the ways that Dallas can, where it's like, okay, we're gonna run this pick and roll with Luka, or we're gonna clear this side out so Luka can isolate it. Ant kind of seems like he's getting caught in the wash of a Wolves offense that looks a little bit directionless or rudderless. And I guess, I guess I could play this clip, but it's what he attributed that to, and a lot of the players attribute that to, is, guys not making shots, which offensively just is kind of really gumming up the offense. But here's Ant when asked about just kind of offensively what they need.
harder to respace when they're filling gaps and being a little bit tenser up there, or is it easier to respace? Or is it just a different way?
Even when we was respacing and we was getting to our spots, we just wasn't knocking the shots down. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to be in the gaps even more the more we miss. We didn't shoot the ball well from 3 tonight at all. Yeah, I didn't make one. Nope, nobody shot well but Jaden and Mike from 3. And, you know, and if we keep shooting like that, then they just going to keep being in the gap. So no matter how we respace and get back out to the three-point line, if we don't knock them down, they're going to sit in the gaps all night.
I mean, that is what's happening, right, Kyle? Like, it's just like when Ant does decide to put his head down, there's just so many guys there because they are just, you know, whether it's, I mean, even Carl, but like guys like Nikhil or Kyle or Jaden, they're just not respecting them from 3. So the Wolves offense kind of, given the way that they're playing it, has to start with the surrounding pieces making threes so as to get to something. And that's how I think we leave this game with the taste in our mouth that we have about the offense. It's like, what are you trying to get to? What is happening here? And it I don't know. I mean, in the moment, it feels like they were too reliant on needing guys who are not high caliber 3-point shooters, you know, to knock them down so Ant can get going. And, you know, when he got the dunk, they took him off the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he's playing there. And so he's kind of like attacking from the slot. Can't load up as much there. There's a couple plays in that third quarter, even before that. I just want more of those things, or they need more of those things offensively, so they're not reliant on the first lever, which is role players making threes, pulling that one, so the rest of the offense, so you can just kind of get into your normal things that you want to be going to, whether that's Ant in isolation, Ant in pick and roll, Cat in the post, whatever it might be. They just need to pull that first lever, and they have consistently, you know, or at least in this game, we're consistently not able to do it.
So Ant finishes with 26 points, 11 of 24 from the field, didn't hit a 3, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. And I want to flag that 9 assists because, you know, we started with offense and we started with Ant on a pod that I think some people would have preferred we started with someone else on the team. But I think you have to start this pod with Ant because Ant has graduated now throughout this playoff run to like he's a quarterback in the NFL. Where if they win, he's going to get the praise, and if he loses, he's going to be ridiculed, even if it's not really his fault. Like the defensive stuff, that moment in the late in the fourth, that's just on him. That he just has to be better. I mean, I don't really know how, other than coaching it, but like there's no real schematic thing there. If you watch that play, Mike is telling him like, you slide down to the corner, I'll be on Kyrie. But offensively, like there is stuff they can do. Like there was a possession late in the game.
I will say though, no, it is schematic stuff with Ant because,
but not that one play we're talking. I mean, that one is just like he just
didn't guard anybody.
Yeah,
but he's consistently guarding the corner guy, and he's doing it wrong.
Okay, that's fair.
And that like, and that one isn't like a very obviously didn't do it right because he didn't guard him, but he's. I mean, we can all kind of picture this, right? Like when you're guarding the guy in the corner, you kind of have this dual responsibility of staying home.
Ball on the man, yeah.
Yeah, right? To not giving that up completely, but also being there to help as, you know, as the big is rolling through the lane. That is the job there. And he hasn't been able to do it. That was the big adjustment, right? In game 3 was taking Ant off of Kyrie. And then also, you know, trying to clog the paint a little bit more themselves defensively by having Ant be a little bit more resistance in the middle of the floor, if that's Carl there, whatever. But it's not necessarily that it was a bad adjustment. It's just that they didn't execute it. And I think the player who didn't execute it most loudly was Ant. I asked Finch about it after the game.
Chris, you switched Ant off of Kyrie. It looked like Conley was kind of the primary in that one, and then also kind of had the corner guys coming over a little bit more. It seemed like some defensive adjustments. How did you think some of the defensive adjustments you did in game 3 kind of played out?
Well, we moved Ant off, so we have because we were going to start up with 2 on the ball and pick and roll, so we wanted as much size as a low man, so that's why we brought Mike to the top of the floor. And then, you know, our rotations in the first half were pretty rusty. You know, I mean, the very first 3, we help off the strong side corner, and that's not something that we normally do. So, game plan mistake right out of the gate. You know, can't have that. We cleaned it up a little bit at halftime. We were a little bit better. I thought we were a little more aggressive, kind of shrunk the paint a little bit better, even when we were aggressive on the ball. But then it was about containing penetration, which we didn't do a good job of. So,
and like Kyle, there is the Cat part of it, and we're going to talk about that. And he hasn't been effective on offense, but if we are weighing the things of what has hurt the Wolves most, is it Cat's ineffective offense or what Luka and Kyrie are doing? I think you could point more towards the Luka and Kyrie, even though both are issues in that. And that's why I'm choosing to focus on this here, is because, and it's not all Ant, but it's this stuff, the inability to impact the ball on the perimeter, consistently, if it's not Jaden McDaniels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And an inability to kind of know on the back line, again, if you're Ant or Cat or whoever that might be, of understanding how to play that game. That's why I'm focusing on that, because that's why I think that, Luka and Kyrie are averaging a combined 60 points, over 60 points per game in this series, while also, but I don't know, I have the assist numbers in front of me too, but it's not like they're being inefficient, like super inefficient offensively, and they're getting others involved. That's because they figured out the weak spots in the Wolves defense. We talked over and over again about that double drag thing that they were running, after game 2, and the Wolves kind of getting lost in it. They just looked permanently lost in this game against basically any Kyrie or Luka look where those guys weren't just settling for jump shots. So that's why I wanted to start with that.
Yeah, and not to belabor the point, but that's everything you just said in the Finch stuff. That supports my Rubik's Cube idea that they take Ant now off Kyrie, right, and put him kind of off ball in the corner or whatever. So they put Mike on him. Mike had 5 fouls for the first time since April 26th. Yeah. That was a month ago. Mike played the fewest minutes he's played since the Wolves lost by 27 to the Nuggets in game 3. So that was kind of a blow up. Like, Mike hasn't played fewer than 31 minutes, I don't think, in a month. So again, you pivot by saying, okay, we'll take Ant off him, we'll put Mike on him, and then Mike had no chance against Kyrie, and whenever Kyrie really wanted to just get by Mike. So if anything, what that does is support the take off the top, and I would imagine you're kind of agreeing in real time, is I just think Dallas is a better team. And because every time the Wolves close a lever or, put gum in a hole, the Mavs just exploit another hole. Mm-hmm. And if it happens time and time again, I mean, that's why you're seeing these fourth quarter situations where it's 105 with 5 minutes left, or it's the other night it was 98, and then the Wolves just go cold offensively, which I think is more than just Ant that we should talk about, but also defensively, it's just they don't have a way to stop 2 of the best closers of all time, and maybe the best backcourt right now in the NBA.
Yeah, well, let's get to Cat after the break here. We'll grab our first break. Today's show is brought to you by Autograph and the Autograph app. You can download it for free in the App Store, Google Play Store, and it's a place to get all your team-specific content in one place. Articles on the Wolves, or if you're Vikings too, as the summer goes on and whatever off season and all those sort of things. They have different communities where all the articles on the team, or like in the Wolves community, my show is in there. It's a free, easy way to get all your stuff in one place. And by consuming content through there, you get these fan coins, and you can use those fan coins to get memorabilia. They've given away free tickets through the playoffs, again, if you enter drawings with those coins. So it's just a fun, easy way, free to consume Wolves content. Again, that's the Autograph app. The Autograph app, you can use the QR code on the screen, or just download Autograph and use code DaneMoore as the referral code, so you can let them know that you came from us. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and I imagine if you're watching the Celtics and Pacers tomorrow, you maybe need a little something else to get you really excited about watching that game. So it's always fun, just throw $5 on a daily fantasy lineup and kind of put that together and have something that you're watching while watching the rest of the game too. We've been talking about picks that we thought have been good in the Wolves series. They'll have game 4 up there as well, if you feel like you have a feel for this series. I said Ant more than 6 rebounds. You got 9 in this one. It's all just those, more or less, than a specific stat number, and you put those together to make a daily fantasy lineup. That's PrizePicks.com or the PrizePicks app, promo code Dane for a $100 sign up bonus. All right, Kyle, this is the unfun part. Is that Cat's really struggled in this series. He was very effective, very important to what they were doing defensively in round 1 against Phoenix, guarding Durant, and obviously very important, really effective against Nikola Jokic defensively in round 2. He doesn't whatever have that type of matchup in this series, and we knew coming in, we talked about it, that this was going to be a series they needed a lot more from him offensively. And through 3 games, he is shooting 12 of 32 from 2-point range, and 3 of 22 from 3-point range. Was 0 for 8 from 3 tonight. Finch talked about him pressing after game 2. And he really seems to be battling himself in many ways here. We know that's not the offensive player he is, but we also know that this is something that is baked into Karl's game too, which is just kind of struggling with the mental battle, sort of within himself. Yeah. What have you thought about it? What do you think about it tonight?
It was killer. It was killer to be 0 for 8 from 3 in the house that Dirk built, right? As the best shooting big of all time. Dirk sitting courtside watching that. I mean, I choose myself personally to just kind of sympathize, because I can't imagine what that would feel like to just play terrible at the highest moment. But it's when those, he hit 8 threes tonight, or he took 8 threes tonight for the first time in a long time. And that's the number you and I always say is like the baseline. It's like, yeah, just take 8 threes, take 8 threes. We didn't hit any of them, and they were all really good looks. And when that wasn't falling, I know we kind of closed the chapter on Ant, but Ant tied a playoff career high for himself with 9 assists. He could have had 16 if he just would have had anyone else show up to the party. So as much as we were down on Ant in segment 1, I thought Ant kind of unlocked a little something by getting into the paint, and he started to find ways to find, that pass he had to Kyle Anderson at the end of the shot clock. Maybe it wasn't the best play in the world to get Kyle a corner 3, but
that alley-oop corner 3.
Yeah, he connected on it, but Ant, and he was trying. I'm watching on TV, right? You're there, but there was moments where Ant was during timeout stuff trying to build Karl up, trying to build him up, but they just got nothing from him. And when Ant would kick it to Karl, you need him. We're talking about in segment 1 how Luka and Kyrie just end a game, whether it be a baton passing of you cook this time, I'll cook next possession, or they interlock and cook on the same possession. There was, I think, one possession tonight when one possession I remember where Ant ran a high pick and roll with Karl, and Stan Van Gundy goes, "Why don't they do more of that?" And I couldn't help but think about my buddy Dane, because it was the only possession they did it. And I don't remember if it led to a basket or what, but those two just have not been nearly in the same hemisphere as on the same page of working a 2-man game as what Kyrie and Luka can do, or just an ISO version of, all right, Ant's going to cook this possession. We talked about letting Ant take breaks on defense. It would be awesome if Ant could take breaks on offense, right? But they didn't.
That's my thing with Cat is I don't know what's the thing to go to. Again, given what we were talking about before, when they're not making threes out there, there's just all this gap help, and Karl's drives start on the right side of the floor and wind up closer to the left corner than to the rim, and it's not that. The post hasn't been an option. Maybe I was thinking maybe in game 4, that could be something they could go to more. I think Lively's presence just kind of lurking there. PJ Washington's guarding Cat in the post, but Lively's kind of there underneath the rim. If Lively's out, maybe you can go to that a little bit more. But I don't know. In these 3 games, when it's been really obvious through the game that they need more offense from Cat, I haven't known to myself what would I try to get to him with. And maybe it is the pick and roll action, and you just use him there. But in terms of just straight, okay, Karl, we need you to get to your spots. We all know what Kyrie and Luka's spots look like in this series. I have no idea what Cat's offensive spots look like right now.
And not to keep bringing him up, but I think that with Ant too is I don't think Ant has spots. And I think that shows at its brightest in late game situations where he just doesn't have, and if you want to be glass half full, he's probably going to work on some of that stuff this summer at Team USA with like KD and Steph, and like he's probably going to learn that next level for him. But for Karl, who's a little older, he doesn't have those spots either. And I thought that too when Lively went out, that the rim was clearly open, right? I mean, you noticed tonight why the Mavs made moves at the deadline, because Powell is not a rim protector, and it was barbecue chicken at the rim for the Wolves. But again, they didn't. We talk about Ant and help side defense and some of that's schematic, but some of that's just on him. Like, there was probably ways to, like, I continue to think Jason Kidd and his staff are just coaching better in this series than the Wolves staff. But a little bit's on the Wolves staff to find ways to get him the ball more, to try to get him in positions to get a touch close to the rim. But again, it's like you can't go 0 for 8 from 3. You can, and it happened, but that stuff just kind of sucks the life out of your offense when Ant's working so hard and he's getting 3 on him in the paint and he's trying to kick it out, and Karl's is spacing in the corner, is spacing in the slot, and he's just not hitting him. I mean, I don't know what to tell a guy to be like, hey, just make the shots. Like, that's pretty easy analysis, but the fact that he didn't do it in a moment where he hits 2 of those and he goes 2 for 8 from 3, they probably win the game. That stuff just kind of drains your soul, because back to the mental thing, it does seem like it's just kind of mental. Like, it seems like he's kind of in his own head, and he kind of sounded like that after the game as well. You could tell that he's a lot of these guys always say, man, that they're not online, but they are. And I think he's just kind of fighting it right now. And he's going to have to snap out of it ASAP. Otherwise, it's going to be only 48 more minutes.
Yeah, I would just like to see him be a player who, when he has the ball, looks like he has control of the possession, and that the possession isn't going to cause him to lose control. Mm-hmm. And I think Kyle Anderson was kind of a good example of that, of just kind of, dictating the offense a little bit more, reading the floor, kind of waiting for doors to open up rather than just kind of trying to bust right through the door frame. And that kind of clicked in my mind. Finch was asked in back-to-back questions about Cat's struggles and then Kyle Anderson. And I thought those things kind of stitch well together. I'll play that clip.
Which thing of Cat tonight?
I thought he struggled, of course. It's hard to watch with at times, but he had enough buckets here and there. Kind of staying defensively in the second half. I was really pleased with the way he played. Rebounded pretty well. But yeah, it's he's struggling. There's no doubting that right now. So
the 3-point shooting for him over 8 is he rushing? Is he doing anything, or is it just a matter of shots just not going in?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the other day he rushed. I didn't think he rushed today. So just it's probably a question that's better asked to him, because he's the one shooting them. He got a couple good looks, and needed those to go down, particularly early in the game.
Why was Kyle so effective, do you think?
He's a smart offensive player, and probably should have played him more, to be honest with you, and just understands like what's going on in the game and how to unlock some good offense for his teammates, and then by doing so, he's crafty enough to be able to benefit himself. So
I think that's the part that's probably the most frustrating, right? Is that the whole first 20 minutes is talking about finding ways and Ant learning and all this stuff. I think that's probably why people get so frustrated with him, is just there is some of it where it's just you have to figure it out. Like, you can't have everything kind of schemed up and designed for you. Like, one of the reasons Karl was so great in that Phoenix series or that Denver series is he's just asked to play as best a defense as he could, and then find
seemed like
pockets.
A smart player.
Yeah, and find pockets like those offensive rebounds, right, where he attacks in that Denver game to kind of have the game and series sealing bucket. Everyone else is kind of watching, and he attacks and gets an offensive rebound. Just things like that active big guys can do, right? I mean, you see Gafford and Lively do it. He doesn't have Lively's athleticism, but it's like Lively doesn't have his offensive skill that Karl has. So you would just hope that he finds pockets or little backdoor cuts. I mean, he ran one pick and roll tonight with Rudy that really worked, and just that is the part that you kind of, as Finch said, it's tough to watch. not everything can be, and this isn't a criticism of you, but not everything can be structure. I don't think Kyle Anderson always plays with the most structure. He just knows what to do. Like, again, a thing that really stuck in my mind with Ant was that, I don't know what the score was, they're down 2, and Ant was bringing the ball up, and Kyle set a screen at half court, and it just flipped the matchup, and then Ant immediately got downhill on Gafford, and it was an easy bucket, and Ant turned around and pointed at Kyle like, that was smart. Like, just that little screen at the logo got me uncorked. Carl doesn't find those little things, and I don't know if it's a confidence thing or what, but
I don't think it's a confidence thing because he doesn't consistently do those things. I mean, those aren't frequent things that happen during the regular season. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And that's why, like, just thinking through it, like, what are the ways that you can put, and I don't know, like, maybe to your point, it is just individually on him, but where my head goes to are what are the ways in which you can put him in situations that are less likely to unlock that stray voltage or like the just kind of losing mental focus or whatever is going on that is leading him to be so ineffective. That Carl package part of it. And I don't know. I don't know if where you put blame on that. Is that all just on Carl? Is that on the coaching staff? But at the end of the day, it's not something that they've done at all in this series. And again, gave Carl his flowers over and over about the defense he played in rounds 1 and round 2. But it wasn't that wasn't a big part of round 1 and 2 is Carl offensively.
Right.
You know, like there was time at game 7, Denver, they played through him in the post. And that was really meaningful in the, in the third, fourth quarter there. Game 4 against Phoenix, when he had 28 or whatever, like there was a consistency of going to him. But largely, I mean, how many playoff games have there been? 14 now. I mean, how many of the 14 have been good offensive games from Cat? That doesn't take away from the good stuff that he's done defensively, but I don't know, 2, 3, 4, like that. That's a wall, man. Like that. Like if that's what it's going to be, it really caps the ceiling of it. And I'd say that to not like hyper fixate on tonight, a night where he went 0 for 8 from 3. That's not gonna happen over and over again. But what are the ways that Karl Anthony Towns can be an impactful offensive player in the playoffs consistently? We still will leave these playoffs not knowing the answer to that. We do know the answer that he can be an impactful defensive player in the playoffs, and that is a merit that he will leave these with. But when the season is done and you talk about what this team didn't have this season during the regular season and the postseason, it's going to be offense.
Yep.
And it hasn't made sense all year why this team has been as ineffective as it has been offensively. And that is objective, number one, going into the offseason when that time happens, of how do you get this group to play better offense more consistently? And a lot of that goes through Ant, but Carl is far and away the next most important offensive piece on this team. And they've not been able to get to that more often than not in the playoffs.
Second time since February 24th, they took 8 or more threes. You didn't hit any of them tonight, but that just kind of solidifies your point of, like if you have 5 senses or whatever, and one of your senses just isn't working, like typically your other senses,
sure,
from what I've heard, like work more, like if I'm blind, I might smell better. And for Carl, it's just, I'm not mad that he went 0 for 8 from 3. It would have been great if he went 8 for 8, but like I will put my flag in that I'm happy he took 8 threes, because I think, and Ant talked about it too with the gap help and all stuff, they needed someone to just take threes. But if they're not going in, we talk about this with Ant all the time, like if your jumper's not going in, get to the rim, get fouled, or play better defense, or get your other teammates involved, or just attack the glass. You can't be at that level of stardom or of contract or veteran status in the league and multiple time All-Star. And if the shot's not falling, like that's it. Like my one sense is out. I have no senses. Like you have to find another sense here to.
We can't be sitting there in the clutch being like, I'm not sure it's a good idea that Karl Anthony Towns is out here over Kyle Anderson.
Yeah.
That can't be a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a reasonable thought. I mean, I'm not saying it was wrong that they went to that, but that's a fair thing to sit here and question. And Finch said, you know, as we just played, that he probably should have played Kyle Anderson more. Well, that probably, you know, would have came at the cost of Cat there at the end of the game, or it could have. I don't know. That's when Kyle Anderson is a better offensive option for your team in any given game than Karl Anthony Towns. Something's just not. That's what I'm saying. Like, something isn't working in the greater scheme of the offense, and something isn't working individually with Cat. It's a bummer, and it's the thing that's really costing him this series. In addition to the things that we talked about with Ant, because the top two guys on this team are getting grossly outplayed by the top two guys on the Dallas team.
Kyrie and Luka had 19 points combined in the fourth quarter. Cat and Ant had 2, and that's it. And that's their ball game.
And it's just like, why? Like,
right.
Why?
Mm-hmm. And it's gonna be, as you said, like you said, if you look at it, it's gonna be a big topic whenever the offseason starts. Is that now that you've leveled up, there's less time for like forgiveness, right? Like, now that you've known that you can do this, that you can get to this next hemisphere, or you can get within a couple weeks of the NBA Finals. You just don't have as much patience or as forgiveness for stuff like this. So there's
always been a belief, right, in the Wolves front office and coaching staff that Karl in the playoffs in the right situation could do and be more. And again, that showed up a little bit in round 1 and round 2, but now we're going to leave the playoffs with all 3 rounds having happened. And there can't be like a blissful naivete of the idea that, you know, once in the playoffs, Karl can be great. We have to go off of the broader sample of what this has been. And at least offensively, more often than not, and not just in these playoffs, you know, in the Memphis series, in the Houston series, you know, when that happened, Karl has not been the level of effective offensive player that they need him to be. He's not been a bad offensive player, but this team relies on him being the second banana of the offense. And he, in the playoffs, has not shown that he can be that player to. Yeah,
and it's the same criticism, right? If like Kyrie was kind of bad in that OKC series, or just never really leveled up. And he's, like you said, him and Luka are cooking now, but I mean, Kyrie was getting a little bit of that in the second round against OKC, just like, man, you got to be the second banana. You got to come through and hit some shots. And they won that series, and winning kind of cures all. But when you're losing, man, at this level too, like I would much rather be down 0-3 in the Western Conference Finals than figuring out lottery balls. But
sure,
when the microscope is at its closest, you really got to perform, or just, again, the 0-for-8 stuff that does happen. Like, guys can shoot really poorly in a game, but it can't just be you take that away and now you have no impact. And that's the thing, like whether it be on the block or, you know, getting to the rim a little more.
Like Ant had an 0 of 7 from 3, right? And you didn't leave that game being like, oh, next game Ant's probably not going to be able to deliver offensively. You know, I think about game 4 and again, yeah, Karl went 0 of 8 from 3, and I don't have a belief that he's going to be able to deliver offensively in game 4. This isn't like, I don't know, that they have like Bam Adebayo or Anthony Davis guarding him, man. It's PJ Washington with help there often, and a defense that's schematically executing everything. And that's, you know, it's a big credit to Dallas, but Karl has to be better than that. There shouldn't be, unless there's a great defender. I would understand this from Karl if there's a great defender on him and the team was playing great team defense, but it's just, it shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard for the offense to be what it is for Cat. You have any final Cat thoughts, or we can talk about?
No, I was digging into box score stuff, but yeah, when Ant went 0 for 8 against the Nuggets back in March from 3, he then went 0 for 8 from 3. He went 8 for 10 from the field, had 25 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and I think 4 steals and a block. He just found other ways to impact the game, right? I mean, that's a regular season game, but that's just it. Like, you just can't. We talk about all these levers, man, and these holes and shutting down off water. You can't have one lever close and just be like, my impact now is I'm Daniel Gafford, right? Like, you got to do something else. And he didn't do it tonight in the biggest stage and the biggest moment of this series. And, yeah, it really, really cost him. And it probably is why in real time, like, can you believe we're saying this? Can you believe we're saying this a week out? It's like, man, he probably should have played Kyle Anderson more.
I know. Yeah, right. I mean, and Finch said it. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not just us. And yeah, let's talk about Kyle. I mean, credit to him.
He was great. He's been great all series.
He's been great the
all
entire series
long.
And it was a player that you knew had to play well for the Wolves to play well in this series, because they needed another guy that they could put in the Luka matchup. And if that guy was going to be Kyle, he had to be not a problem on the offensive side of the ball. And to his credit, he's way exceeded that bar offensively. And I mean, he was dealing in the second half. And that 2-man game, him and Conley were running, just again, playing smart offense, taking the ball out of Ant and Kat's hands, who, whether it be frustration or mentals or whatever, were not able to consistently play smart offense. And, you know, credit to Kyle for being able to do that while the rest of his teammates aren't. That's like, that in and of itself is an impressive thing. Also, when you factor in that he's struggled offensively this season, lost his own confidence clearly on offense many times this season. Yeah, for him to do that and be another weapon on Luka that allows you to make it so Ant never has to guard Kyrie or Luka, which I think is a must in this series from guarding them standpoint, from an energy standpoint. Like, Kyle Anderson has done everything that, you know, that he's needed to do in this series. And quite frankly, I just thought it was really fun in the fourth quarter to watch that. And
there's like a poetry to shifting from what we just talked about with Carl to shifting to what we're talking about with Kyle, because I think it's just all confidence. He shot 5 for 6 in the field, but he took all 6 of those shots with just confidence, right? I mean, even your alley-oop.
Because he's a dog.
Right, yeah. But he, you know, who coined the term, if you're going through hell, just keep going?
Yeah.
It was hell for Kyle in, I think, that Denver series, and it's been hell for Kyle for most of this regular season. Obviously, post-trade deadline, he had kind of revitalization, but I mean, people were ready to send him out in the Denver series because he was unplayable, and that happens in the playoffs. There's series that just you don't match up well, but he has been, I don't know, man, off the top of my dome, like the third best player on an average basis for the Wolves in this series. I mean, on an average basis, maybe even second. He had 2 blocks tonight too. There were just these little things about these impact plays and the setting of the screen for Ant, or just finding ways to get Ant off the ball and make his life a little easier. That's what Carl's got to do more. That's what Jaden's got to do more. That's what Rudy's got to do more. Is just, how do I make the other guy's job a little easier? Because I know that the kid is making my life a lot easier by just, you know, doing all this other shit. So he was incredible tonight. He's been incredible all series. His defense on Luka is one of the rare bright spots for me that I was right about coming into this. I was like, I know he can defend Luka and not stop him, but slow him down. He just doesn't react to the stuff that I guess your average defender would react to. He stays down. He's heavy in a positive way. He just doesn't let Luka kind of bully him like happens to Nikhil, right? Nikhil's just skinnier. He can't guard Luka.
And that is why they need like, they didn't need Kyle Anderson to be one of their perimeter defenders in, say, the Phoenix series, right? Because
or the Denver series, really, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because you had enough in Jaden, Ant, and Nikhil. And Nikhil just doesn't have as much of a defensive impact in the series. Also, his offense has been really bad in this too. So it's kind of a compounding sort of thing. So yeah, man, without Kyle Anderson in the series, that's like, you know, I think about game 1, how well Jaden McDaniels shot. What was it, like 6 for 8 from 3 or something?
Yeah.
And then Nas in game 2 was 7 of 9 from 3. And then what Kyle gave them in game 3 here, it's like, man, yeah, the series has been decided by 13 points or whatever thus far through 3 games, but it'd be a lot worse if all 3 of those guys didn't have great games in each of those games to kind of elevate the group. And credit to them, but obviously Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and Kyle Anderson need a little bit more help than just an individual good game for the team to be able to win.
You said something interesting, and I'm just thinking out loud. I don't have an answer, but they closed with Naz in game 2, right? Because that's the right move. I don't think anyone has any issue with that. It's just he was a hot hand. Carl didn't have an issue with it either. I think Kyle should have closed tonight, especially because Jaden was in a weird batch of foul trouble. The officiating again was just kind of out there. But who would you have wanted him to close with, on the front line? Because I didn't think Rudy. It's been a tough Rudy Gobert game and kind of series as well. But like, would you have closed with him and Naz at like the 4 or 5? I mean, again, I don't really care about positions, but I'm just wondering, like, who else would you have closed with? Because you said, well, if Kyle would have played more, probably Carl would have sat. And I'm wondering if it would have been
Kyle. You're right. Has more
Kyle
so
and
been
Carl
playing like the 1. Yeah.
I'm just curious. I don't have an answer. It's just he should have closed.
My answer is would have, in relation to Carl, would have been the same as it would have been in the fourth quarter in relation to Carl in the fourth quarter of game 2, which is he's not helping. Okay. Like that he would have been the one I would have pulled out of there. And they had a lot of foul trouble in this one too. Like Rudy, Jaden, and Mike all picked up their 4th foul like midway through the third quarter. So you're fighting some foul trouble and stuff like that. I think maybe if those guys weren't in foul trouble, Carl might have sat more down the stretch again, just because he wasn't helping. But yeah, it's weird to be like, yeah, the lineup I would have closed with is the one we've been talking all season about. Please don't ever play, which is Rudy, Kyle, Jaden. At the 5-4-3, because there's just that wouldn't have exactly loosened up the spacing for Ant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was trying to think if you could close like I guess Jaden, Kyle, Naz, Ant, and Mike. I just don't know. Again, they were giving up offensive rebounds, even with Lively out. But
can Naz defend the role? And,
no, that's again, away? It's the Rubik's Cube before just kind of fucked either way. But I definitely thought
it's not having the personnel to effectively match up with this version of Dallas, which this version of Dallas is fucking balling. Like,
oh my God. When Kyrie hits that one in the corner in front of his bench, they've said this on all these games as you rewatch them, but tip of the cap. That was just tip of the cap. Like, I mean, some of the shots Luka hits, man, those threes, Stan Van Gundy was just drooling over himself. He's like, those are unguardable. I mean, I don't know if you have anything else. I don't know if you have anything else to say on Kyle. Again, fantastic. Should just probably at least get a bare minimum of 20 minutes in game 4. Kind of a pride game to see if you can. I know Naz said if any team can do this, it could be us. I'm excited to watch game 4. I'm excited to see this is a team and a coaching staff that I can't imagine is going to get beat by 50. I'm excited to see their adjustments and stuff. But going back to just thoughts in my head, like I thought Jaden tonight, you said he had foul trouble, but I thought Jaden just continues to play really good defense.
Yeah.
There's just really nothing you can do. Right? I mean, he doesn't have Kyle's weight or Lou Dort's weight or whatever, but I thought he did a good job. It's just, again, man, these two guys for Dallas are killers, and there's only so much you can do. And I thought Jaden got a tough whistle, but and he played up well offensively too. Like that's kind of been a bright spot if you're trying to look at anything to hang your hat on moving forward to the summer, is that there will be some question marks, and there always is. That's the beauty of the NBA and the playoffs and making a long run, is there's only 4 teams left, and now everyone's watching you. But I think Jaden has shown an ability to kind of level up a little bit offensively. Still doesn't do a lot by himself. Does kind of need to get spoon-fed, but he's hitting those corner threes tonight, man. Without him, the Wolves would have been like 5 for 28 from 3 or something. So
no, I feel like he's actually been good on Luka.
Okay.
Weird to say when Luka's had 30 in pretty much every game, or however many total points he has thus far. But yeah, like I don't know. There would be a lot of items on the list that we would say haven't gone as well as they needed to go before we got to the job Jaden's, done on Luka this series, So I think credit to him. I think Rudy is important and, has been helpful in defending the rim, but not to the extent that he probably needed to be, or definitely not to the extent that he needed to be. He needed to just swallow up some of this stuff in this series. And him and Jaden together, that was like the plan in game 1, was just defending those pick and rolls with just the 2 of them, having everybody else stay home. And basically the Wolves will just kind of broke on that at some point of like, Jaden and Rudy aren't able to take this. You know, we have to make an adjustment to be able to give them a little bit more help. I think a strong signal of that is Dallas shot 9 corner threes in games 1 and 2, and they shot 10 tonight, 9 total in games 1 and 2, and 10 tonight. And that is the Wolves showing a little bit more help because Jaden and Rudy weren't able to take that on them completely themselves. They got a little bit more aggressive up there, but yeah, probably to have won the series, you needed to be able to answer, particularly the Luka pick and roll, better with Jaden and Rudy. And I would say more of that's on Rudy, though the gap from what Rudy's doing down to what Kat or Naz are doing is still pretty big. Which
defensively,
defensively, yeah,
okay.
Which hasn't gotten me to the point of ever being like, I don't think Rudy should be playing. I'm seeing that he's not impacting the offensive side of the floor, and you're kind of torn on that when you're like, all right, they clearly need more offense too, but they need more offense within a lineup that can guard the Dallas attack, right? And that's what gets us to being like, maybe the lineup needs to be like Rudy and Kyle and Jaden and Mike and Ant, and it's like, oh, that's not a good offensive lineup either, you know. So it's
You joked to me late after game 2 that Rudy probably watches all those lobs, and there was a lot of them in game 2, right? Obviously not as many in game 3. We probably mentioned that Derek Lively went out with a real nasty, what they called like a neck injury, but looked like a concussion in real time. He got kicked in the back of the head, and he was real woozy, and he's been great. I mean, Derek Lively has been, as I said, maybe their 3rd best player, but you joked about how Rudy's got to watch all these highlights and be like, damn, that'd be fun. It'd be fun to catch lobs like that. Is that possible for this team? I mean, again, we're looking down the barrel of down 0-3, no team's ever come back. But I'm just talking about in general. Like, is there a way to get some of that with whether it be Ant? I mean,
it would have to be Ant. That's right.
It would have to be Ant.
I mean, like we've seen the Conley floaters all series, right? Do you feel like those are very contested? No, it's because they're staying home on Rudy. So it's like when Mike is getting to that 12-foot range, it's like, okay, righty floater time. And, you know, he makes those. Ant needs to play more like Luka with his big and have that option be there. That would be part of the like, oh my God, every time I drive to the basket, I have to go through 3 guys. Well, if you get downhill, stop, and are able to find Rudy on a lob, much like Luka consistently does to Gafford or Lively, that loosens it up. And Ant took a stride in that this season. I think he only had, off the top of my head, maybe it was like 21 or 23 assists or something to Gobert all of last season. And that improved during the regular season. That has not been a big part of the Wolves attack at all in the playoffs. And it has to be to get the offense again, just to a higher level, because you're going to play Rudy for the defensive reasons. So you need to not let him hurt your offense. And the way you do that, so we were talking about in the Denver series, you know, finding him on the short roll a little bit and letting him make a play there. But more so, throw it up and put it down. Like they need people who can do that. And the only players they respect enough in that situation to let Rudy be open are Ant and Kat. And Kat does a good job of that, of finding Rudy when he starts driving downhill and he sees Rudy there for a lob. That is like, to me, in the offseason, if you could magic wand something for Ant offensively, it's that he gets 50% better playing 2-man game with a big. And that could be Kat too in the pick and pop game. Like, as Van Gundy said, where's that? Like, Ant needs to be a better pick and roll player in the roll part of that. His pick and roll is like pick and roll for a switch and an isolation for him to barrel downhill. Yeah, it'd be great if it looked a little bit more like the Dallas attack to Lively and Gafford. And the thing is like Rudy does actually have the offensive skill set to be able to do that, right? And size and all those sorts of things. But yeah, that would be my answer to that.
It would be cool if he just learned or perfected one of the. I feel like it's a new trend in the league, right? Just like that ability to snake and just get a guy on your hip. I mean, there's got to be no worse feeling than Jaden or anyone who like Luka gets him on his hip or on their back, and now he's just at like the free throw line and he can do a multitude of things. He can throw a lob. He can just pull up. And I was
I
thinking,
think Ant will, man. Like
I do too.
Yeah,
but I just, can you imagine what that looked like?
come. Yeah,
How great that'd be. Because randomly, I was thinking about Ant's dunk, which it was a bummer, right? Because that happened midway through the third, and that was, I think, the first time all game and maybe all series where they looked like themselves, because they were just that kind of that wrestling persona of just being bullies. Like, he hit that dunk, and then he had incredible defense on the other possession, and they just started to chip away, and then they got the lead. But that dunk was crazy because it wasn't like any of his other poster dunks where he had this crazy runway. Like the John Collins dunk, man, he basically started sprinting from the half-court line. Right. Or the one in the or not the bubble, but COVID year where he's in the corner, he dunks on the guy from the Raptors. This one, he like kind of hesitated and got like into the mid-range and then realized like, oh my God, if I take one hard dribble here, I'm just going to kill Gafford. That would be cool as he starts to snake more. As he gets to that free throw line, he's got a guy on his back. He's like, I can either throw a lob here. If I just take one power dribble, I can just dunk it on someone. So he has not figured any of that out yet to the level that would be, that Luka has. There's a 3-year age gap, but that's another thing too of just watching these bigs for Dallas that, a little younger than Rudy, but they just feast on lobs. I mean, they just feast, whether it be Lively or even Gafford or even when Powell's in there. Just that's not an element that you've seen from the Wolves at all in this series, and really not as much this postseason. So, and that was kind of some bread and butter. I mean, I remember a lot of lobs thrown to Rudy this regular season that just has dried up. Yeah,
and I think Ant spent a lot of time last offseason working on footwork in the middle of the floor, right? The kind of mid-range footwork stuff that he grew there a lot. He grew a lot in his ability to kind of like split double coverage and be able to kind of create with his dribble through a crowd in the middle of the floor. Like Ant wasn't doing those things 12 months ago.
Right.
And the reason he improved on those things is because I know he worked on those a ton. And that was his individual focus. And it's not as fun of an individual focus, but really establishing that sort of chemistry with both of the bigs in pick and pop with Cat or pick and roll with Rudy. Like, that's not the fun stuff to probably get in the gym and work on. But if ultimately, like, the goal is to get to a level that's higher than this, which is there's 4 teams left in the playoffs. Like, they've been one of the best teams in the NBA. But if the goal is something more than that, then if you're Anthony Edwards, you need to be asking yourself, what are the things that I can do individually that level me up a little bit more? Because every level that I level up individually has all of these spreading positive externalities through the rest of the team. So yeah, so it wouldn't be the fun stuff. Working on your technical stuff in pick and roll game, working on your focus defensively and understanding better coverages and stuff. Like, there's plenty of film out there from these playoffs that show Ant. I mean, there's been a lot of great stuff that Ant has done too, but if you isolate it for the stuff that he isn't doing, it's out there. It's on film. It's stuff that can be worked on, and it's ultimately what has to happen, in my opinion, for this team to get to this place and further in future seasons.
And this is a somewhat sad pod because you fall down 0-3, the writing's on the wall of no team has ever come back from this. But yeah, I mean, that's just one of the glass half full things for me, in my perspective, is just every year this kid who is still a kid has worked on something. And the footwork to me is the number one thing that I would take away from his game that's an improvement from last year to this year. Right. And the footwork has even led into other things like the playmaking and
that is a smarts thing too. It's not just like a physical force thing. That's why I think that was extra encouraging. It's like learned skill.
So again, if Ant just picks one skill and gets really good at it every summer, by the time he is 25, there's no reason he can't do all the stuff that Luke is doing. I'm just curious because I remember you tweeting this out. You know who Ant does kind of play well with though, as a big in a 2-man game, and I think that's like a good way to close down this kind of gamer is it's been a really, again, if you're trying to put pins in things that worked well, we talked about a lot that didn't work well, and players are going to have some big questions this offseason. I was talking to someone with the team that after the Nuggets series, I don't know if they had a talk with him, but they're just like, I didn't think Nas had his typical body language. Like, he just didn't look like himself. And why would you? You had 7 really tough games, but I've been really impressed with him and the way he's bounced back. He's had a great series, and I thought he was great again tonight. He finished with 14 points, 5 of 10 from the field, only 1 for 5 from 3. But just little things like you tweeted out a clip when Ant gets doubled, Nas just is constantly moving and finding ways, and as soon as he catches the ball, he attacks. And it's that 0.5 mentality. But for whatever gaps exist in the two-man game between Ant and Rudy, and maybe, Ant and Carl, because they never run it, I like watching Ant and Nas out there together, because I always think Nas has that Iowa Wolves basketball mentality, and he finds ways to get open or make plays when Ant
more
needs
naturally.
him. Yeah. It's very organic.
I don't know if this is right, but I was thinking about there's 1-3 in the game that Carl really clearly rushed. And it made me think about, is he trying to duplicate the Nas stuff a little too much? Remember how he said that?
Yeah.
He said that, and we said this too, like, when Carl gets back from injury, plug him in and have him be playing in the way that Nas does, right? Quicker, more decisive, all those sort of things. And it's good. And at times he did that, but it almost feels like to me that like Carl is trying to square peg himself into a round hole that looks like Nas Reed. And maybe that's like something he can develop with like a little bit more time of that. But there's something to me about Carl trying to play like Nas Reed that feels or seems a little unnatural to him. And it's part of why I think we have these numbers that Carl is having offensively in this series. Like, I would assume Carl, there's never been a 3-game stretch of his entire career where he's played this poorly offensively. And the first thing you would look to is like, okay, it's the playoffs and maybe the moment's too big, whatever. But something about it, I would assume, like, has to be a little technical, right? And a little bit of like a stylistic emphasis. And Finch said needing him to play more like Nas. He said, I need to play more like Nas, and these are the things I'm going to do. And he just hasn't there haven't been as many of the cat offensive performances there. So again, maybe it's a learned thing, and not necessarily a bad idea in general for him to be playing that way. But I do wonder if it's like cost him a little bit in this series.
That's a full circle moment, though. You know what I mean? Just to think that Nas Reed was brought in as like a poor man's Karl-Anthony Towns, and now we're having this conversation about Carl just trying to be like a rich man's Nas Reed. It's just the three you're talking about, by the way, the one he rushed, I think it didn't hit the rim. I think it bricked off the side of the backboard. So, I'm with you. And I mean, that's the psychological thing. I think segment 1 was about Ant just finding that he has leveled up so many levels at such a young age that we're both impressed. But like, okay, now there's a couple more. Like, you're staring it in the face every game you
like
go up against.
A couple more
Luka
that are actually behind you. Like, you need to go, like they're a little bit more like rudimentary, and so many of the other things that you've leveled up in, like the way, he was being guarded by Denver or Phoenix, were actually, how many times did I say like Ant is thinking the game in round 1 and round 2, and he was. But these are some more kind of more basic things from him that he maybe needs to like rewind the tape to get back to.
And again, this might have been the worst performance of Karl-Anthony Towns' postseason career, but they're not here. I mean, like, Nas just deserved to play more than Carl in game 2. Nas probably deserved to play more than Carl tonight, but they're not here if they don't have Carl, because I think Nas only scored 14 points once in 7 games against Denver. He scored 14 points or more in all 3 games against Dallas. He's just found himself again, and that's a big thing for this team. But, I'm with you. It's just the psychological part of whether it's just you're missing shots or, you're taking 1,500 of them, and then it doesn't translate to the court, or else just trying to be, like you said, like maybe trying to be like the guy behind you when it's just, hey, just be you, be yourself. So it's crazy, man.
Be you, but like with that energy rather than just trying to be him. I don't know.
Trying to, what did LeBron say to Kevin Love? Stop trying to fit out, just try to fit in or something. I also just want to make a note, because there was a theme, again, we're getting closer maybe to the end of this. But one of the like fun storylines of this season was dudes taking left-handed threes, and Nikhil took one tonight, and I thought that was fun. I didn't know in the moment why he did it. I was like, what the hell are you doing? But then Derek Jones Jr. had a really good contest on him, but it was a good-looking shot. And then, that dunk. I'll think about that dunk. Those dunks are not something you should talk about or celebrate when you lose, But it was a cool moment, and it gave you a little jolt of what this kid can still do, and then
it got him going, and it is something to attach to Game 4 of like when Ant gets going, so too can the rest of the team. I mean, the offensive engine starts with those two, and it's been on low power mode for pretty much this entire series. So it will be interesting to see how they're able to bounce back and apply some of these things in Game 4. They haven't lost 4 games in a row all season. But we'll see. I don't even have my head to there yet. We know what happened tonight, and it's disappointing, but it's also a lot of credit, I think, to Dallas for the
Absolutely.
team that they've been in this series. They're making the Wolves answer a ton of tough questions.
They were rattled when they lost Lively, because in the way that they lost him, he's like, I think when you got a young kid on your team that gives you so much energy, when you lose him and he's down in that much pain, they were rattled. And then they were rattled when Ant had that dunk and then those couple sequences after, and they just, again, find ways to close it out. This would be a way I'd want to close it out just because I wasn't there tonight. You were. There was a moment that I do want to – I know we were pretty hard on Carl and it was a bad game, but like I saw Kyle and Mike and Ant did post-game media together. But like Carl spoke too, right? Like he did a media thing? Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Because he was criticized on TNT. Barkley was ripping him for not doing post-game media.
No, and I did media.
Okay. Just always curious because I wasn't there. So
yeah, I mean, just how it works is a couple players are asked to go to the podium. I guess to listeners, I mean, you know this.
Yeah.
A couple players are asked to go to the podium, and it's normally the players who had the best games, and then the other main guys do media, but at their lockers. And Rudy did media at his locker, Nas and Kat. They all spoke. It's all up on YouTube. So yeah, it's just they didn't ask Carl to have a podium game because he didn't have a podium worthy game. I mean, he had his. I
think it's worth just bringing that up.
Yeah, no,
again, a little bit of how the sausage is made because it was pretty. It's been pretty nasty on TNT this whole series, but it's pretty nasty in that moment. And if you know how that stuff works, it's not the player's decision.
No, that's
either way.
A good thing to have. Yeah, right.
As we've learned.
All right, man. Game 3, down 3-0. I still think these post-game pods have been fun to do. I feel like it's really during games I'm like, oh shit, I need to actually figure out what we're going to talk about. I feel like we've done a good job with them. I appreciate you staying up and doing all these.
And I know your head's not wrapped around it. You've been working hard today, but I am interested, and you kind of got me back. They have never lost 4 games in a row all season. And now for this to possibly be the last game of their season, there's some symbolism and poetry in that as well. And if you think the series is done, you're probably right because the math will tell you that. But I'm curious to see that coaching staff doesn't just let go of the rope. I'm curious to see what happens on Tuesday. So
it will be representative of whatever way it goes. If they do wave the white flag, that'll be representative of the moment. And if they don't, and if they're able to extend this a game or a couple more games, that will be more in line with the personality of the team that we got to know this season, fatigue factor and all those sort of things. But yeah, we'll see what happens on Tuesday because today is Monday or the game was Sunday.
Happy
now
Memorial,
it's Monday.
Happy Memorial Day.
One.
Enjoy 92-degree Dallas.
Yeah, man. I'm going to stay in here in my hotel room. No. He's Kyle Theige. You can follow him on Twitter at Kyle Theige. You can listen to him over on Flagrant Howls with Phil Mackey on Score North. Chip Peterson, Michael Grady, go on there with him too. Kyle and I will be back after Game 4. Hopefully not for the end of the season. We will talk about whatever happens then. Until then, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.